If you're choosing an LLM based on vibes, benchmarks that don't matter, or what's trending on Twitter, you're leaving money on the table. I've spent the last couple of years running Claude, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Grok, and Gemini side by side across real work, writing cold email copy for 50 plus B2B clients, enriching hundreds of thousands of leads and analyzing campaign data. And today, I'm breaking down context windows, costs, reasoning, copywriting quality, and data freshness. The metrics that actually matter if you're building inside this go-to-market motion. So let's get into it. Hi, I'm Xavier, founder of OneWay. We've built outbound systems for 50 plus B2B companies using Clay, Instantly, and a bunch of other tools in the go-to-market space. If you're new here, I share frameworks, workflows, and real results from running cold email at scale. All right, so before we compare how these models perform, let's talk about who's building them. First is OpenAI. It was founded by Sam Altman in 2015. He started the whole LLM race with ChatGPT 3, and recently they released ChatGPT 5. Anthropic, founded by the Amodei siblings, I hope I'm saying it right, Dario and Daniela in 2021 left OpenAI to focus on AI safety and alignment, and that's where Claude comes from. Then you have Google's DeepMind. They built Gemini in 2023 after merging Google Brain and DeepMind together. They're the OG when it comes to AI research, AlphaGo, AlphaFold, and now they're going after the LLM crown. Then you have xAI, founded by Elon Musk in 2023. They're the ones who built Grok with real-time web access and the goal of maximum truth-seeking AI. And of course, we have DeepSeek, founded by Liang Wenfeng in 2023, and they're based in China. They built DeepSeek R1, an open source reasoning model that punches way above its weight when it comes to cost. Now, why does this matter? Because how these companies are structured affects their priorities. Anthropic, they focus on safety and long context. OpenAI wants to win enterprise. Google wants to own distribution. Elon wants real-time data, and DeepSeek wants to democratize access. So let's see how that plays out in actual performance. Here's what we're comparing. First thing is context window. How much can you feed the LLM at once? Second is cost. What does it actually cost to run these LLMs at scale? Third is reasoning. Can it solve hard, complex problems? Fourth, copywriting. Can it write really good cold emails that don't sound like AI? And five, data freshness. Does it know what happened last week? I'm also going to show you a live copywriting test where I run the same prompt through all 5 models and show you the outputs side by side. And if you stick around to the end, I'll tell you which model I use for what in my production stack at OneWay. So let's first start with context windows. So a context window is how much text you can feed the model in one shot. This matters if you're analyzing a 50-page sales deck or you're enriching massive lead list, summarizing Slack threads, or meeting transcripts. So here's the breakdown. Gemini 2.5 Pro can take 1 million token. That's roughly 10 Harry Potter books. GPT-5, 400,000 tokens. Grok 4, 256,000 tokens. And Claude Opus 4, 200,000 tokens. And lastly, DeepSeek R1, 128,000 tokens. So the winner by a mile is Gemini. But here's the catch. Most people don't need 1 million tokens. So if you're writing cold emails, you're using maybe 5 to 10,000 tokens per request. If you're analyzing a CSV with 500 rows, you're still under 50K. So unless you're dumping entire code bases or 200-page PDFs into a prompt, context window is nice to have, but I don't think it's the bottleneck for most of you. So what is a bottleneck? Cost. Let's talk input and output per million token. Gemini 2.5 Pro, input $1.25 per million tokens, output $10 per million tokens. DeepSeek R1, input 25 cents per million tokens, output $1.10 per million tokens. GPT-5, input $2 per million tokens, output $8 per million tokens. Grok 4, input $3 per million tokens, output $15 per million tokens. And then Claude Opus 4, input $15 per million tokens, and output a whopping $75 per million tokens. So the winner, DeepSeek. It's 10x cheaper than Claude and 5x cheaper than GPT-5. But here's the thing, cheapest doesn't always mean best value. At OneWay, we use GPT-4o Mini for bulk enrichment. It's fast, it's accurate, and it's still very cheap. But when I need high quality cold email copy, I'm going to pay the premium for Claude every single time, because one great email is going to be worth 100 mediocre ones. So the question isn't always what's the cheapest, it's what's the best cost per result, which brings us to reasoning. So reasoning is essentially asking if this model can solve hard problems. This matters if you're building complex clay tables, trying to debug what the hell's going on there, or doing multi-step strategic analysis based on a very long and complex onboarding form that a client filled out. So here are the GPQA benchmark scores. This is the metric that most people use to figure out which LLM is the smartest. So here are the numbers. Grok 4 at 88.1%, GPT-5 at 85.6%, Claude Opus at 83.3%, Gemini 2.5 Pro at 80.3%, DeepSeek R1 at 79.8%, and the winner is Grok 4 by a hair. But in a real world use case, we have found that Claude and GPT-5 feel just equally as strong. I wanted to share these metrics just to be transparent, but if you're watching this video, there's a pretty big chance that you're also interested in outbound, go-to-market, and stuff like that. And in my experience, I have found for both GPT and Claude to outperform the other models. But another thing worth noting also is that DeepSeek is probably the most interesting out of all these models because it's open source, so it's way cheaper. And it's 85 to 90% as good as most of the other models when it comes to reasoning. So if you're running an extremely high volume operation and you need just good enough reasoning at 1/10 of the cost, then I think DeepSeek is the winner here again. But if you need nuance, creativity, strategic thinking, and you're okay paying a little bit more, then I would still recommend Claude or the new GPT-5 model. I think they're the gold standard. And now let's talk copywriting. Look, my team and I, we're writing cold emails for dozens of companies at a time. My job is to not sound like AI as much as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you what would happen if we run the same prompt across all of these models. And for that, we're gonna use a new tool that I've been really enjoying playing around with called Open Router. Okay, so now I'm inside of Open Router. What's really cool here is you can select any of the models that are available. So you can search for Gemini, you can search for Grok, GPT. And then what happens, if we were to put a prompt here, it's going to run all of them at once so we can compare results. So one thing I wanna try out is something very basic. If I were to write me a cold email, which I did earlier. One thing that I noticed, and this really highlights what I was talking about earlier in this video, if we give something very generic like this, write me a cold email, Grok says it looks like your request is a bit vague, right? It still gives me an option, but it's telling me like, this is not good enough of a prompt. Here, I really like GPT asking me clarifying questions, right? So it knows how to write it for me. It still gives me something to play around with. Claude, same thing. It's asking me, who am I trying to reach out to? What's the goal? What's the background? And so on. And then DeepSeek is the one that didn't ask any clarifying question. So this was, I don't want to say disappointing, kind of expected. And then also Gemini asked me the same thing. What is the goal? So what I actually liked about Gemini probably the most is that it refused to give me an example. It just asked me for clarifying questions. But now let's actually write a prompt that's a bit more detailed so we can compare the quality. Okay, so we've added a bit more information here in the prompt. Again, my recommendation if you're doing this, obviously you'd want to feed it a lot more context. But let's see, we give it a bit of more of a persona, what the problem is, what we want to offer it, and we kind of constrained how we want it to write by saying keep it less than 100 words and make it punchy and conversational. And now we're going to hit enter. And as you can see, it's now running across all of the models, which is pretty cool. Okay. So we'll read some options together here. Grok, hey, John, I noticed your team is dropping 10K per month on Apollo, but those reply rates are stuck under 1%. Ouch, that's a tough ROI. I already hate this, to be honest. As a deliverability expert, I'd love to run a free audit on your email setup and list quality. We'll uncover quick wins to get more opens and responses. Sounds good. Reply to schedule a 15-minute chat. Okay. Now GPT. Hey John, blunt question. If Apollo is 10K per month and you're seeing less than 1% reply rate, something's broken. Deliverability, list quality, or messaging. I run Runaway. We fix this for B2B SaaS teams your size. I'll run a free audit of your deliverability, send them reputation box placement, and list quality, no pitch, just findings plus fixes. If it makes sense, we implement. If not, you keep the roadmap. This is still not great, but not bad. And now Claude. Hey John, notice you're investing 10K per month in Apollo but seeing less than 1% reply rates. That's brutal. I'd bet your emails aren't even reaching inboxes. Most teams don't realize their domain reputation is shot until it's too late. I'll audit your email deliverability and list quality for free. Takes 15 minutes. I'll show you exactly why prospects aren't responding and how to fix it. Worth a quick call to potentially 10x your reply rates. Way better. Still, I would not feel comfortable sending this. And by the way, when it comes to copywriting, my opinion has been and still is that AI is supposed to write maybe 80% of the email. You're supposed to go in there, make some tweaks, and then you can launch at scale. But Claude so far is doing pretty good. Let's see at DeepSeek. Hey John, notice you're investing heavily in Apollo but hitting less than 1% reply rates. Ouch. Let's diagnose why. I'll run a free audit of your email deliverability and list quality. No strings attached. Could be a simple fix to get those replies flowing. Sounds helpful, just reply yes and I'll get to work. This is awful. Okay, let's look at Gemini. Hi John, hearing you're spending 10K per month on Apollo but seeing under 1% reply rates, that's a gut punch. This, by the way, that's a gut punch. Ouch. This is like classic AI written stuff, so you'll have to add more context obviously in your prompt. But again, this is for testing purposes, just so you can get a bit of an idea of how these LLMs react with a bit of direction. My team specializes in B2B SaaS outreach, and we consistently see reply rates above 5% for our clients. We can do a quick free audit of your current email deliverability and its quality to pinpoint the issues, ready to turn those dollars into conversations. I'm not a fan of this as well, and as I expected, because what we use internally is Claude for most of our email copy. Claude and GPT, I want to say like maybe 70% of the times it's Claude, 30% of the time is GPT. The one caveat that's really important to mention here is because Gemini has the largest context window out of any of the LLMs, that means if you spend the time to gather all of the successful cold emails that you've sent that you know have a good reply rate, or even like framework that you can add in the master prompt, then you can collect an extremely large file where you can input into the prompt and tell Gemini to use that as inspiration. Then in my experience, I've noticed the Gemini can outperform like a lot of the other models. But still, if I had to gun to my head, I had to rank these models when it comes to copywriting, and this is very subjective, so you have to try by yourself. And please, like, feel free to use OpenRouter. I think it's a great user experience to go through all of the models. But I think number one is Claude. I would put Gemini as number two, simply for the context window and if you have enough data to feed it. And I'll put number three GPT, and then Grok and DeepSeek. I would say they're equally as bad when it comes to copywriting. Sorry guys. Now let's talk about data freshness. How up to date is the model's training data? Now here's the breakdown. Claude Opus 4 was trained through March 2025. GPT-5 was trained through September 30th, 2024. Gemini 2.5 Pro was trained through February 2025. Grok was trained through mid-2024, but has real-time web access so you don't need to enable it. And DeepSeek R1 trained through late 2024. So I would choose Grok here as the winner, but it's important to note that all the other LLMs now have the capability to search the web. It's just that that feature is baked into Grok in a much more seamless way. So it feels like when you're talking to Grok, it's pulling live data every single time. Whereas if you don't have that web search feature enabled, or you're not telling the AI in your prompt directly search the most recent news, sometimes I've noticed that these other LLMs besides Grok can give outdated information. But luckily for you, if you're watching this video because you're mostly interested in how to leverage LLM in go-to-market use cases, more often than not, you don't need real-time data. Obviously, before you guys start yelling at me here, there are use cases where you need real-time data. So you can use Grok, or you can be a little bit more specific in your prompting. But for the most part, I don't think this should be a limiting factor on who you decide. And if you're researching a live fundraising round or product launch or real-time company trigger, then either use Grok or use many of the B2B providers out there, such as Prospeo, Lead Magic, Full Enrich. I mean, any of the providers in Clay, those will give you the real-time information. But okay, let's come back and focus on the LLMs. One thing that I haven't covered so far is multimodal capabilities, AKA can you upload images, PDFs, or spreadsheets? And luckily for you, all 5 models support this now. You can upload campaign analytics screenshots, PDFs of sales decks, CSVs of lead data, and you can get pretty much instant analysis. For example, I can upload a screenshot of my instantly campaign dashboard, and Claude would tell me something like which campaigns are underperforming, what my positive reply rate should be, where to optimize subject lines or CTAs. This is huge if you need to analyze data on the fly and you don't want to export, clean, format everything. We often forget about these use cases and how much time they actually save us. And the winner in this case is, again, Claude and GPT-5. They're the most accurate at interpreting complex visuals and structured data. And for most of the cases that you guys will go through, I would recommend these models. But again, it's important to remind you that if you're working with a large data set, I'm talking you're running campaigns for, I don't know, maybe like 150 plus companies, or you're sending 1 million emails per month, then Gemini is probably going to take the lead simply due to the fact that they have the largest context window available. All right, now let's do a quick breakdown of the video so far. So context window, Gemini wins by far. They have 1 million tokens that you can add in there, but most people don't really need it. In terms of cost, DeepSeek is also winning this by far, 10x cheaper than Claude, but cost per result matters more than raw cost. And then reasoning, Grok 4 is gonna edge out the competition, but Claude and GPT-5 are equally strong in practice. And copywriting, I'm just gonna give it to Claude. It wins. It's just the most natural, punchy, and human when it comes to writing good copy. And data freshness, I'm gonna give it to Grok since it has real-time web access baked into the product. But again, most of your go-to-market use cases will not need it. So this is the end of the video. If you're building go-to-market motion and you wanna see how we use Clay, LLMs, and cold emails to generate pipeline at scale, I share everything on this channel. Subscribe if you wanna see more videos like this. And if you're running cold email right now and you're not sure which LLM to use, start with Claude for copy, GPT-4 Mini for enrichment, and make sure you're constantly testing these different models on Open Router. You didn't hear this from me, but I noticed when these LLMs come out with a new model, in the beginning, there's a huge boost in performance, and then it tanks again. So you could save a lot of money and time if you're testing these kind of things on Open Router, and then you can figure out when you need to pivot and pick a different model for the use case that you have. That's it for today. Let me know what you think of the video. Drop a comment if there's another LLM that you guys are using that you think we should be using, and I'll see you in the next one.